Hi, this is David from CenTrak, and this is a video about setting up SSL security for your Iris server. Just before we get going, I'm going to review the steps. First, we're going to create a domain name, and we'll do that using a free service called noip.com. Once we've got the domain set up, we're going to set up our router to update that the address for that domain using dynamic DNS or DDNS. And we are going to set 2 ports to be forwarded from the router to the internal server machine. Once we have our port forwarding set up, then we're going to go to a website called SSL for free and first validate our domain name and then download the certificate files. Register the certificate files on Windows, and then we'll go into Omni and select that certificate for use by Iris, by Omni. So that's more or less the steps. Let's jump right in. So the first thing we're going to do is go and define in our browser, we're going to go to the noip.com. I've set up a paid subscription, but you can have a free subscription here. And we're going to create a host name. So we're going to call it David, let's say SSL. And we're going to give the extension hop2.org and create the host name. So that's it. Now have David SSL.hop2.org at this, which is now showing this address, but in a moment we're going to connect to the router, and the router will update the DDNS server with the current IP address. So if we go to my router, we'll log in here. And we'll go to Internet. These menus are very similar on other routers. You'll have to figure it out on your router. So go to DDNS, and we're going to change this to David SSL. Now, I've got here my username and password for the noip.com account. Right? So the idea is that the router will then update the DDNS server whenever the IP address is changed on the internet side of my router. Right? So I'll apply that. That's good. Next step is port forwarding. So we're going to go here, it's under security port forwarding, and I'm going to create, actually I've got them here already defined. So one is 80 to 8090, where I will give it a name, and this is the MAC address of my internal server that is running the Iris server, and I say that port 80 goes to 8090. And I do the same thing for port 443, so any internet TCP packets that come to 443 will be routed to this internal machine on port 8091. Right? So we've got those 2 ports forwarded using port forwarding in my router. Okay, that's the router setup. The next thing we need to do is we go to SSL for free, and we put in that domain name that we just defined, which is David SSL hop2.org create. Okay. And we now have to do verification with manual verification and manually verify this domain. So it's going to tell us to download the file. We're going to need to download this file into a folder under E41, C Iris E41 SRV data. Under the www root folder, we're going to create a folder called Well Known, and under that, the Acme Challenge. Right? So you see them already defined here. If you don't have them defined already, you need to define them per the instructions here on the web page, right? Well known and Acme Challenge. And we're going to download the file into that folder. Okay, we can now verify. It's going to click on that, and you could see that I now have David SSL hop2.org, and it's connected to that server and displayed the contents of that file. So we know that that domain name functions correctly. All right, once that's done, I download the SSL certificate. And that's going to take a minute. Okay, so it's generating the SSL certificate securely. And again, I recommend that you put in this email and password so that you get a notification, right? Every 3 months when this certificate expires. Now we've got these 3 text files, the certificate, the private key, and the CA bundle. We need to now save them into the Iris SSL folder. So that's C-Iris E41SRV data SSL. And here I've got these 3 files. You're going to create those files with these names and copy the contents from these windows here. So you'll take the certificate, copy that, and put it in to the server.crt. You're going to take the private key, copy that, and put it in the server.key, and the CA bundle, you're going to copy that, and you're going to put it in the server CA bundle file. Right, so now if I double click on my certificate file, you'll see Windows is showing, okay, it's issued to davidssl.hop2.org, and I'm going to install that, and next, and finish. Import was successful. Now if I look at my Iris server and I go into All Systems Apache Web Server, I'll see that that appears here in the list, and I need to check off the redirect HTTP to HTTPS and put in, let's change that to davidssl.hop2.org, apply that. Okay, so now I've got my SSL defined in Iris, and let's have a look. If I go to davidssl.hop2.org, and sure enough, I've connected to my server and I've got a secure connection. Right, so it worked. So we've got, to summarize, we created the domain name, set the router to update the dynamic DNS, set the port forwarding on the router, went to the SSL for free and first validated my domain and created the certificates, created those 3 files under the data SSL folder, registered that file in the Windows registry by double clicking on the CRT file, and then went into Iris and selected it in the Apache object within the system in EV2. And then we updated, checked off to redirect HTTP to HTTPS and given the domain name, and then we're done. So that's it. If you have any questions, let us know. Cheers.